Fuck, he actually wore a book? These were the first words that came to Gulan's mind when she woke up in the boys' dormitory. The second sentence is, why does everyone wear a villain female supporting role to make a perfect turnaround while she wears it in the boys' dormitory and becomes a man? Okay. Gulan checked her body, there was nothing extra in a certain part, she was still a woman's body, but she seemed to be a man. Gulan was lying on the bed in the dormitory, frowning as she read the plot of the book-crossing novel that suddenly appeared in her mind. The original book is a campus full of handsome men all over the world love heroines, those who don't love heroines are bad guys, all beautiful women love heroines, and everyone who loves heroines except heroines is a bad guy. Mary Sue novel. Gulan in the book is the roommate of the heroine, with a wealthy family and outstanding appearance. She is the 102nd male partner in the book who has a crush on the heroine. Well, the male supporting role is more decent, but it is actually cannon fodder. The chapter in the original book that introduces the original patron Gulan is only one chapter. Gulan molested the heroine, said a few lines, and went home to recuperate after being violently beaten by the heroine. After recovering from the injury, he went back to the dormitory, and the male lead was thrown by the original owner into the most terrifying dormitory described in the book, like a horror novel in a campus novel, 444 dormitory. In the end, Gulan had a mental breakdown and went crazy, and her family was also pinned down. After reading the whole novel, Gulan felt very complicated. So few appearances, how can she continue to play the role of the original owner? There are no character actions, that's it. Gulan herself fits the characteristics of many heroines in time travel novels. Orphan. No money. No friends. Still unlucky. There was a car accident, and there was a whimper on the spot. Now that I have crossed over, there is nothing to worry about. And what she used to like most was fighting, flirting with girls, and sleeping. She's not good at acting. Gulan thought about it seriously for a long time, and finally decided it's just random. Anyway, the original owner was originally a small supporting role, so no one should have noticed. When she noticed it, she said that when she went out, her brain was caught by the door, so her personality changed. If it doesn't work if the door is clamped, she will hit the wall on the spot and pretend to have amnesia. Simply perfect. The more Gulan thought about it, the more she felt that she was worthy of being talented and intelligent. At this time, 3 parts are cool, 3 parts are sneering, and 4 parts are careless voices, accompanied by the sound of the door opening. Hey, and Momo is my woman. You dare to tease her, you are finished. Get out of this dormitory, now, immediately. Gulan didn't expect that the domineering president here not only has fans-haped eyes, but also has a voice, and the quotations from the domineering president made her think that this boss might have a brain. Gulan blinked and decided to fight the poison with the poison. She sat up. Before she could see what the hero of the statistics chart looked like, she spoke first. This classmate, first of all, I don't call you hey, I'm Gulan. Second, I didn't molested her, and I'm not as blind as you. Xiao Hui didn't expect Gulan to say such a thing. He and Gulan have been roommates for 3 years. Gulan has a flamboyant personality and causes troubles everywhere by virtue of being a rich second generation. He, who is worth hundreds of millions, is very low-key. How dare this little rich second generation dare to be so arrogant in front of him, and even molested his woman? Liwa, who was crying silently, brought rain, so he found someone to beat Gulan, and Gulan fled back to the dormitory. Mo was puzzled and felt that the punishment was not enough. Xiao Hui was going back to the dormitory to punish Gulan in person this time, and recorded Gulan begging for mercy in pain for Mo to watch, so that Mo could rest assured. In the end, he didn't expect that Gulan would mock him like a normal person. Not only Xiao Hui, but there were 4 watching boys standing behind Xiao Hui. After hearing what Gulan said, they all looked at Gulan gloatingly. Gulan, you just have to be stubborn. Tisk tisk tisk, it seems that brother Xiao didn't do anything cruel, you can still get up. Who doesn't know that Momo is our sister-in-law? You dare to tease your sister-in-law, are you courting death? Brother Xiao is nobody here, let's beat him up. Gulan sat upright on the lower bunk, staring at the 5 people in the dormitory, connecting them with the characters in the novel. Xiao Hui standing in the front is indeed the configuration of the male lead in Ba Zong's novels. Tall, with a straight nose, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, iceberg temperament, eyes with the momentum of throwing 100 million people to death, the astonishing confidence of a boss is not something ordinary people can have. Standing behind him was Gulan's former roommate and Xiao Hui's younger brother Jia BBC Ding Ding. Gulan thought it was funny when she saw it, she was the villain in the book, but why did she feel that these guys were the ones who really deserved to be beaten? The smile on Gulan's lips made Xiao Hui frown tightly, he knew it was a provocation. You are not convinced? It seems that they are right, or I am too kind. With that said, Xiao Hui slowly unbuttoned the cuff buttons of his shirt. You all stand back. I will clean up the men who bully my woman myself. You take pictures with your mobile phones and show them silently. Little brothers A, B, C, D were excited. Brother Xiao, you actually want to do it yourself. Brother Xiao is a dark class in Taekwondo, and he never strikes lightly. As expected of a wife-loving madman, it's all because of my sister-in-law. Before the younger brother finished speaking, Gulan walked over slowly, and gave an uppercut to Xiao Hui who was still unbuttoning his cuff buttons slowly and gracefully. Xiao Hui almost bit his tongue. Gulan is also very helpless. She didn't want to do anything, but the other party wanted to shoot a video to threaten her. Yo, that's it? Black Duan? Sorry, I've practiced it too. Gulan was not used to using this body, but the strength of this body was stronger than her original one, coupled with her actual combat skills, she was simply invincible. She raised the corners of her lips. The appearance of this body belonged to an indistinguishable androgynous handsome boy, with short sandalwood hair in a wolf-tailed hairstyle, extremely deep double eyelids, and thick and curly eyelashes. It's a pity that the original owner always looks arrogant and cowardly at ordinary times, forcibly giving a discount to the beauty. After Gulan came through time travel, it was like wiping off the dust from a dusty pearl, revealing a different brilliance from before. With one hand in her pocket, the corners of her lips were raised, and there was a wicked smile in her eyes, looking cynical and undisciplined. Xiao Hui, who is the male protagonist, is also slightly inferior compared to her. Xiao Hui looked embarrassed, touched his chin, and looked at Gulan with shock and anger. How dare you! Before Xiao Hui could finish speaking, Gulan punched Xiao Hui again, causing Xiao Hui to stagger back. The little brothers A, B, C, and D, who were taking pictures with their mobile phones, stood there in a daze, feeling unbelievable at the sudden and unusual plot. Gulan was also surprised. Is there something wrong with the hero of the plot? This strength is not like the hero but like cannon fodder. For a moment, Gulan wondered if she had fallen into the villain's face-slapping novel. But it doesn't matter, if you see an injustice, you can do it, it's better if the other party is easy to bully, or wait for the other party to bully her. Gulan thought about it, looked back lazily, curled her lips, made a V-hand gesture to the camera, and said with a smile. And Momo is your sister-in-law, right? Back then, her best friend didn't talk cheap about me, and I didn't bother to talk to her. Problem solved, I'm leaving. When Gulan said this, she didn't even bother to look at Xiao Hui, and went back to her bed to fold the quilt and roll up the bed. How could Xiao Hui tolerate this kind of thing as a domineering hero? His clenched fist trembled with anger, and glared at Gulan's figure. How dare you provoke me? You are finished. Saying so, Xiao Hui didn't move. He was also afraid that Gulan would hit him a few more times in front of his younger brother, and he would really lose face. After a stalemate for a while, Gulan packed up all the things in the dormitory, and walked out of the dormitory with the bedroll. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Xiao Hui didn't expect that Gulan would move out of the dormitory as he had planned. Could it be that Gulan was afraid of him? Xiao Hui was thinking, then heard Gulan say, "We should be doing a good job of sorting garbage here, right? You guys should live together with non-recyclable garbage. Goodbye, A, B, C, D." Gulan walked away gracefully, leaving Xiao Hui hammering on the door panel vigorously. "Damn it, you dare to provoke me like this! You guys, shut everything up for me. Gulan wants to change the dormitory, right? Okay. I'll help him. Gulan will definitely be worse than death." Gulan could hear Xiao Hui's impotent rage as she walked in the corridor. She shrugged. Sure enough, it's still very strange to see the real boss in real life. In the original book, the master of the Central Plains went to the 444 dormitory and was bullied miserably, but Gulan looked at the whole book, and in the book with such a strange style of painting, the whole school was almost influenced by the heroine Mary Sue and the dominant male protagonist. Only the people in the 444 dormitory were unaffected and perverted from the beginning to the end. She'd better hang out with the pervert. Gulan walked to the door of dormitory 444 with a pile of bedding rolls in her arms. This dormitory number is particularly unlucky, and there seems to be no students living on the 4th floor, and the entire corridor is empty. Gulan walked to the door of room 444. She put the bedroll at the door and was about to knock on the door, but who would have thought that the door was not closed, so she just creaked and opened. Inside, a man was taking off his shirt and throwing it on the back of a chair. Gulan happened to have her back facing the door, and Gulan could just see the man's muscular and tight wheat-colored back, wide shoulders and narrow waist, and the obvious muscle lines that would only come from regular exercise. There is also a hideous scar that almost runs across the entire back. Gulan was stunned. I went so mad. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Gulan felt that she was not a pervert, but this man's figure was considered top-notch in her 2 lifetimes. The muscle lines are smooth and not exaggerated. The 8-pack abs are still covered with sweat, and they have an attractive luster in the sun. Every muscle seems to have amazing explosive power. Unlike Xiao Hui, the male protagonist in the original book, this kind of muscle can only be developed through high-intensity training. After all, the body can't lie. Domineering schoolgirl Xiao Hui is either busy falling in love or being jealous and dealing with rivals every day, so she has no time for fitness. The only fitness estimate in the original book is the mat exercise after graduation. There is no trace of femininity in the man's appearance, it is completely a man's appearance. His brows are frowning coldly, his facial features are cold and hard, his nose bridge is straight, his lips are not thin but they are very sexy. What is more interesting than his appearance is his temperament. It's hard to explain the sense of oppression he brings to people without being angry or arrogant. He just looked at Gulan coldly with his dark eyes, and didn't even speak. Just staring at Gulan made Gulan feel pressured. Gulan rarely sees this kind of person. To be honest, she is quite curious. Tall, cold, and stern, unsmiling but frightening for no reason should be Yan Xiao in the original book. Yan Xiao only has a simple description of his appearance, and he hates people who talk too much and have too many things. The original book does not describe much about the 444 dormitory. The main reason is that they are very indifferent to the heroine, as if some strange supporting role was suddenly inserted in a romance novel, which does not fit the overall plot at all. Gulan quite likes this kind of non-spoiler feeling, at least this guy should not be a love brain. Facing Yan Xiao's stern gaze, Gulan held a thermos in her left hand, dragged a suitcase in her right hand, and carried a big bulging school bag on her back, with a fallen bedding roll beside her feet, and said with a smile. Hi, hello. I'm new to your dormitory. Yan Xiao would feel annoyed when he heard people talking, especially if they were not afraid of death and were weird. When he spoke, his voice was low, as if he had a unique ability to control the field, and the mere opening of his mouth would make people feel intimidated. Role. The same style as the male protagonist Xiao Hui, it is obvious that this one speaks more forcefully. While thinking about it, Gulan whipped the corpse of the dead male protagonist in her heart, and at the same time, she quietly stuck her foot against the door. I can't get out, I have no place to sleep if I get out. As she said that, Gulan felt that the things were too heavy, so she walked into the dormitory where the 5 perverted bullies lived, and put the thermos bottle by the wall. As soon as she put the things down, something made a hissing sound in the dark behind the door snake. Gulan was startled. Sure enough, it is indeed a perverted dormitory, there are all kinds of surprises when you first come in. Yan Xiao looked coldly at this guy who was not afraid of death when he broke into their dormitory, frowned, and turned his head to get a towel. He is too lazy to talk nonsense, this guy will run away in a short while. This dormitory is not for ordinary people to live in. Yan Xiao went into the bathroom to take a bath, and Gulan found it exciting to hear the sound of water. Is she disguised as a man and penetrated into a boy? It will feel very astringent. But it's a pity, men are not as cute as soft and fragrant girls. Thinking about it, Gulan quickly piled her things into the dormitory, and then went to find the snake where the water bottle was placed. Where is little snake? Hiss, come out, don't be shy, I just want to eat snake soup, and I'm not a bad person. Gulan quite likes such little things. But this dormitory raises a big thing. When Gulan hissed, a green python about 2.5 meters long slid out gracefully from the doorway, its belly pressed against the ground, and a pair of dark eyes looked at Gulan. Gulan and the snake looked at each other. The green python slowly straightened up, its terrifying body and huge snake head approached Gulan slowly. The dormitory slowly quieted down. 3 minutes later, the dormitory door was pushed open. An interesting thing happened today. Xiao Hui was cleaned up by a small thing, tisk, he was punched in the face. The end of the man's voice is naturally upturned, which sounds very cynical, and his voice is quite magnetic and very recognizable. He pressed his fair and slender fingers on the doorknob, and communicated with the boy behind him who was slightly taller than Gulan but less than 1.8 meters tall, wearing earphones. The boy has a cute baby face, but he doesn't seem to be able to smile, and his expression is serious which doesn't match his cute appearance. The two returned to the dormitory, and after pushing open the door, Kikai was stunned for a moment. Okay. What? In the dormitory, a slender and neutral-looking boy with sandal hair was holding a huge and terrifying python. The giant python kept struggling in his arms, obviously very reluctant to be hugged, and from time to time spit out scarlet letters and made a hissing sound. But the boy seemed to be having a good time. Don't hiss, Xiaolu, you won't lose a piece of meat if you hug her. Gulan was having fun when she suddenly found that the light at the door of the dormitory didn't seem right. She looked up and saw 2 handsome guys standing at the door. One of them looks like the evil, charming, and glamorous hero in the novel at first glance. It should be Su Huanwen, who is chased by women every day in the original novel, but it is said that a bad woman can go around the city. In the original book, the heroine tried to seduce Su Huanwen. During a group lecture, she accidentally spilled water on Su Huanwen's pants, and then helped Su Huanwen wipe them in a panic. As a result, Su Huanwen smiled, and then kicked the heroine 3 steps away. The male protagonist Xiao Hui only threatened Su Huanwen with a few words, but he didn't really mean it. Gulan hugged the giant python, thinking about the plot, and looked at Su Huanwen. Su Huanwen held the doorknob with his fair hand, the sun fell on his fingers, and the shadows on his fingers made his fingers look slender. The tails of his eyebrows were raised playfully, making his eyes even more blurred and charming. The man's eyes were narrow and long, with a misty feeling of mountains and rivers outlined in thick ink and heavy colors. The corners of his lips seemed to be used to the upward arc, and his smile was a bit arrogant combined with charm. A bit familiar. Su Huanwen looked Gulan up and down, his eyes were naturally blurred, and he always looked affectionate when looking at people. Gulan knows that this kind of person who looks sentimental may be the most ruthless. Gulan put one arm around the giant python that was struggling to escape from her arms, and raised one hand in a friendly greeting. "Hi, I'm a new roommate, my name is Gulan, hello." Su Huanwen understood, Gulan, the one who beat up Xiao Hui. Gulan didn't expect the news of Xiao Hui's beating to spread so quickly, so she thought about it carefully. Not even one meal, just two, at most half a meal. The smile on Su Huanwen's lips widened. He looked at the python in Gulan's arms, walked 2 steps into the dormitory, bent down and squatted beside Gulan, and raised his hand to stroke the python's head like a cat. The giant python also hated Su Huanwen very much, and his body twisted like a twist. Su Huanwen obviously liked teasing snakes, and his smile became more cheerful. "That's it, so cute." Gulan didn't know whether to say she was cute or the snake was cute. "But this snake is really cute." Gulan also imitated Su Huanwen's appearance and went to stroke the snake, but the snake seemed to hate her even more, struggling desperately, hissing non-stop. In the end, it twisted its fat body and slipped away from Gulan's arms, hiding in the darkness like fleeing from a desert. Su Huanwen found it more interesting, and he looked at Gulan. "It's afraid of you, what did you do to it?" Gulan felt a little guilty when he heard this. "Well, just to exchange feelings. It's not afraid of me, maybe it just hates me." Before these people came, Gulan pinched 3 inches of this giant python and taught it to be a snake. She originally wanted to be friends with Snake. But Snake seemed afraid of her and rejected her. Hateful. Sure enough, forced love can only let the other party escape. But it doesn't matter, it escapes, she chases, it can't fly without wings. As Gulan thought about it, a milky but eerily voice sounded beside them. "Qiz won't run away if she hates people. You have a 99% chance of scaring it." Among the 99% chances, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com, you have a 92% chance of grasping its 7 inches. This tone sounds a little weird and a little inexplicably cute. The cute boy with a baby face is a 3-nun boy? Sanwu in the 2nd dimension refers to no mouth, no heart, no expression. Gulan raised her head, just in time to look at the expressionless boy with a cute baby face. The boy's eyes are as clear as a child who doesn't know much about the world, and his face is still a little fat like a baby. It looks cute, but it looks like a robot when it talks. This is the genius boy Yunzhe in the novel. He has a super high IQ, and has almost perfect scores in all subjects since the first year of high school, but it seems that due to family and personality problems, he has been staying in school without skipping grades. Gulan blinked, thinking that this kid is so cute. Yunzhe looked at her expressionlessly. According to the probability, the chance of this Gulan staying in their dormitory is 40%. Also, staying is not good. Yunzhe thought of this and opened his mouth. "I advise you not to stay in dormitory 444. This is not a place where you can rest." Before he finished speaking the same words as the smart AI, Gulan raised his hand and pinched Yunzhe's face. For a while, the whole dormitory was quiet. Yunzhe hardly moved, as if he had pressed the pause button. After so many years, no one dared to touch him, but he. Gulan didn't know what Yunzhe was thinking. She pinched it and found that it felt so good. Up. So, she put both hands together, bullying Mrs. Zhang like a strange aunt, a strange aunt. "What did you eat to grow up? How cute is it? I'll take this face. It's amazing." Yunzhe was stunned at the beginning, and then his face gradually turned red. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. After taking a shower, Yan Xiao came out of the bathroom with his upper body on. He was only wrapped in a towel, and water was still dripping from his angular muscles. The wet black hair was pushed back to reveal a smooth forehead, and he was wiping his hair casually with a towel in his hand. He thought that the person who was going to enter their dormitory just now had already left. Then he came out to see Su Huanwen stood at the door with a playful smile, as if he had seen something interesting. And that little ghost who looked like a robot was being touched with a flushed face. How is this going? It stands to reason that strangers who just entered their dormitory would be bitten by that perverted pet. The newcomer did not appear to have been bitten. Yan Xiao thought about it for a while, but was not very interested, so he sat on a chair and wiped his hair. Su Huanwen saw Yan Xiao at a glance, and he glanced at Yan Xiao. Have you already greeted this new roommate? Yan Xiao didn't stop wiping his hair, and said without raising his head. No. Su Huanwen shook his head. How can you welcome your new roommate with such indifference? Tisk, Gulan, we really welcome you. This dormitory has had no newcomers for a long time. Speaking of this, Su Huanwen showed a nostalgic expression. We haven't had a new roommate for 2 years since the last roommate ran away crying and shouting. Yunzhe's face was pinched, his face was as red as a peach, his mouth was pursed, his mouth was small, tender, and he looked very small. He seemed embarrassed. But I don't know how to express my embarrassment. He let Gulan play with his face like kneading dough. He didn't refuse for a long time, and only opened his mouth when he heard Su Huanwen speak. It's 536 days. Su Huanwen nodded. Yes, you still remember clearly. Su Huanwen squinted his long and narrow eyes, and looked at Gulan, who was having a great time. Do you want to know how the last roommate escaped? Gulan didn't raise her head. She ravaged Xiao Zhengtai with all her heart, and said at the same time. Well, the last one was bitten by a snake. The last one was thrown out by the cleanliness Jing Yongkui because he didn't like cleanliness. The last one was beaten to death by Yan Xiao for talking too much nonsense. The last one said he saw a ghost, and he had a mental breakdown and escaped in the middle of the night. Up to the last one because there were only 5 of them in total, and they all broke down and escaped. But strictly speaking, the last member of the 444 dormitory before going to school is Gulan, who wants to escape but can't escape, and tries to find ways to be sent back by the male lead to be tortured in hell. Of course, now that she has traveled through time, the future will be rewritten. If the hostess and hostess jumps in front of her again, she will take care of her. On the other side, Su Huanwen heard Gulan talk about the frightening past of their dormitory like a few treasures. He looked at Gulan's face carefully, trying to see something from Gulan's face. He knew that this Gulan was not thrown here to seek death, but came here by himself. Why? It's a pity that on Gulan's face, there is only the obsession with Yunzhe's soft and fleshy face, and the joy of pinching his face. Su Huanwen didn't notice anything. He raised his lips to say polite words to Gulan. You are very concerned about our dormitory. Gulan's official courtesies and business exchanges. Wherever you are, it's because you all have personalities and are impressive. In fact, it's all written in the novel. Su Huanwen didn't speak anymore. He looked at his phone. The 2 guys were coming back soon. He doesn't mind having multiple interesting people watching him. In fact, he still looks forward to having more people in the dormitory. After all, he will be upset when he faces all the perverts in the dormitory all day long. But every time it backfires. Su Huanwen raised the corners of his lips to Gulan, showing a somewhat sinister smile. I like you, come on. I'll wait for you to be my roommate. Hearing this, Gulan froze for a moment. You guys still have an assessment mechanism? You have to meet the mechanism to become a roommate. Yunzhe, whose face was reddened by Gulan's pinching, spoke. His voice was still the same as that of AI, but it seemed that he could hear a little bit of shyness caused by being pinched for a long time. Jing Yongkui and Huayan need to agree. Jing Yongkui. Having said this, Yunzhe paused for a moment, as if he wanted to say something and then choked back. Gulan didn't care, because she knew Jing Yongkui's secret. Jing Yongkui has a dual personality. The first personality is gentle, and the second personality is extremely sick. However, the original text only said so, and did not describe what it was like. When Yunzhe saw Gulan let go of his hand holding his face, he subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. This person isn't afraid of him? He's weird, and he's... People who know this, except for roommates, will stay away from him. The possibility that Gulan knows his secret is 0.7%. Not zero yet. Yunzhe thought about it, and then continued. Jing Yongkui hates dirty things very much. I suggest you tidy up the bedding in the dormitory. Huayin. At this point, Ai Meng Zheng paused again. Su Huanwen interjected with a smile, that guy is too perverted, just stay away from him. You don't touch his test product, he usually doesn't care about anything. Huayin is not described much in the original book, only that his appearance is so beautiful that people sigh, but his personality is so weird that no one dares to approach him. Gulan became even more curious. She looked at Su Huanwen like a curious baby. Experimental product? What is it? Su Huanwen also said that Yan Xiao, who was wiping his hair, spoke, and his subwoofer was also very recognizable. Why did you come to our dormitory? Gulan blinked, thought seriously, and answered seriously. I think I may be the same kind of person as you. This answer was unexpected by the three people in the dormitory. After a while, Yan Xiao, who talked the least, was amused. He put down the towel to wipe his hair, narrowed his eyes, and looked at Gulan with dangerous black eyes, as if he wanted to see her heart through her appearance, or threaten her to let her go. A class of people. Do you know who we are? Yunzhe spoke honestly. We're all perverts. Yan Xiao. Su Huanwen. Gulan couldn't hold back, pinched Yunzhe's tender face again. Ha ha ha, why are you so cute? Among a group of weird men, this harmless little cutie looks even cuter. Yunzhe tilted his head in comprehension, he looked obedient with the earphones on. We are indeed perverts. Su Huanwen always says we are perverts. Su Huanwen shook his hands. He was leaning on the edge of the single bed in the dormitory, with his long legs crossed. It's a joke when we say we are perverts. To say we are perverts in front of others, that's, Gulan answered. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com, then let's talk about it in front of other people. She raised the corners of her lips, and her smile was naughty, and the neutral and beautiful boy seemed to be shining when he smiled. She continued. Now we will be a dormitory person soon. I don't care if it's perverted or not, I just know that we don't fit in with this strange world. The theme of this novel is a brain-dead love romance, and the world has collapsed. Only this group of people who are not in the same boat can give Gulan a sense of the same kind. However, others seem to believe her nonsense. They have been regarded as strange people since they first arrived at the noble school. They have come together due to different experiences but the same bad personality, and few people say this anymore. Su Huanwen couldn't help but raise the corners of his lips. The beast does not need others to understand, nor does it need to find its kind. However, it is not impossible for a little lamb to break into the wolf's den in wolf's clothing once in a while. Su Huanwen changed his mind and spoke. I think it must be fun with you here. Yunzhe, Yan Xiao, what do you think? We have 3 votes, let him stay. It was rare for Su Huanwen to be interested. After he finished speaking, he went to look at Gulan, but saw that Gulan, who was a little interested in him, was pinching Yunzhe's face, teasing Yunzhe like a child. What month were you born in? I feel that you are younger than me, so you should be called brother. Do you want me to stay? If you do, I will try my best to stay. Su Huanwen. He was silent for a while, and once again brought into play the essence of man's transformation. I vote no. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Gulan is the woman holding the script. Although she doesn't have the halo of the protagonist, and although she is a male supporting role disguised as a man, she believes that she can live a good life. She still thought so before seeing Huayin. As a result, the door was pushed open, and someone came in pushing a large cart, which still had a strong smell of formalin. It has to be said that dormitory number 444 is terribly big. Although it is only a dormitory, it seems that 3 or 4 dormitories are put together. The beds inside are all single beds, and the desk is in a separate room. There is only one dormitory for them on the entire 4th floor, and it may be that they have opened up all other dormitories. But pushing a cart soaked in dead bodies is too outrageous, right? Gulan didn't understand. Everyone said that Jing Yongkui, who hadn't appeared yet, had serious cleanliness, so how did he coexist with Huayin? Gulan was dumbfounded, subconsciously squeezed Yunzhe's hand hard, and pressed a mark on his tender face. Yunzhe frowned, but didn't make a sound. Even if it wasn't for the frown, he would be like an unconscious porcelain doll. The man pushing the cart lowered his head, his hair was a bit long, like an ancient man, his pace was fast, and the sound of the wheels rolling on the ground was very hellish. Su Huanwen sighed helplessly. You brought this kind of thing back again. The man with his head down stopped and spoke. Gulan was taken aback by his voice. It was very pleasant, with a natural gloom in it. Fresh. Huayin said with a smile in his voice. Rare. Gulan. The pervert's mother opens the door for the pervert. Is the pervert at home? Gulan thought. Huayin seemed to find her fresh face, and looked sideways. His appearance was even more beyond Gulan's expectations. Glamorous, shadowy, sickly beauties. This is Gulan's first impression. He looked sideways, his skin was as white as snow, and even brighter than frost and snow, his pair of dark eyes were hazy, and surprisingly deep. Looking at people is like looking at a corpse, but it seems to be able to see the bones clearly. A straight nose is standard for men with beautiful bridges. His lips were bright red, as if he had sucked blood, and contrasted sharply with his pale skin. There was an unforgettable glamorous beauty, but there was no trace of femininity. The long hair of the ancients was gently behind his head, as if he had stepped out of an ancient novel. The beauty was thrilling. It's really perverted and beautiful. Gulan stared at Huayin, and Huayin also stared at Gulan. He stared at Gulan for a while, as if he saw something interesting. A smile appeared on his bright red lips. Your body must be the most beautiful masterpiece. When you are dead, leave the body for me to decompose. Gulan. After Huayin finished speaking, regardless of what Gulan thought, he continued to push his scary car to the room next to the dormitory. Gulan had goosebumps all over her body. Although she is not afraid of time travel, but this is too abnormal, right? Gulan didn't speak until Huayin left. In the car is a dead body? He brought the dead body to the dormitory. Su Huanwen was the one who talked the most. He nodded. It should be finished before evening, don't be afraid. Gulan felt that it was not a matter of being afraid or not. Why does this guy miss her dead body? This has to make people have a strange idea. You can be ungrounded, but you can't be down to earth. To be honest, Gulan was a little bit timid, but thinking about the dead body not far away when he was sleeping at night, it was quite exciting. Gulan's expression was tangled. Su Huanwen sighed, if it doesn't work, go back. If this is scary, what's the fun in it? Su Huanwen lacked interest and was about to go to bed. Last night he suffered from insomnia, so he found 2 women to accompany him. I'm still a little sleepy now. Su Huanwen was about to go to bed. Yan Xiao continued to brush his hair, but turned his head in another direction. The corpse or something is still a bit unlucky. There was a strange sound coming from the next room. Gulan didn't want to look at it, but listening to the sound, there was a sense of horror. She suddenly remembered. Who raised the snake? Jing Yongkui. Su Huanwen lay on the bed, put his hands under his head, closed his eyes and rested his mind, and said lazily. Well, you have to go, don't waste time. Gulan didn't understand. Why should I leave? By the way, all the roommates are here except Jing Yongkui, right? I don't think Huayan has any objections and said something friendly to me. I can stay. Hearing her words, the three men present were all stunned. Yan Xiao also paused when he wiped his hair. He sat on the chair with a straight back, and his smooth muscle lines were pleasing to the eye, but he suspected that he had heard wrong. A friendly word. Gulan said, that's right, when I die and decompose my body, isn't that what you want me to stay? Su Huanwen slightly turned his head to look at Gulan, he narrowed his eyes, there seemed to be a layer of seductive smoke in his misty eyes, he stared at Gulan for a long time, and said with a smile. Well, your bed is by the window. Move things by yourself. Okay. Although he has not successfully penetrated into the dormitory, he has already occupied a bed, and Gulan is very satisfied. She quickly dragged her bedroll to the side of the bed. Seeing Gulan's excited look, Yunjia couldn't quite understand it. Anyone who comes to their dormitory looks like they are going to die or live. The teachers who checked the bedroom never came. Why, is this person so happy? Because the probability that Gulan is also a pervert is 100%. Thinking about it, Yunjia walked up to Gulan and packed the bedding together with Gulan. Gulan didn't expect that Yunjia would come to help. It seems that the people in this dormitory are also quite nice. While laying the mattress, she raised her hand and touched Yunjia's head. Thank you, brother Yun. Yunjia blinked. According to my age, I am 68 days older than you, and I am an elder brother. Gulan smiled and stretched out her hand to press Yunjia's eyebrows. Her sandalwood hair swayed slightly with her movements, and her bright smile swayed in front of Yunjia's eyes. Yunjia, age is not the only criterion. For example, I am stronger than you. Gulan has naturally replaced herself as a male role. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com does not feel that she is disguised as a man at all. In a sense, this is also a kind of camouflage. Yunjia frowned slightly. Gong. Yan Xiao looked at Gulan who was interacting with Yunjia, and slowly brushed his hair. Live in. It's just living in, there is nothing to care about. Su Huanwen only regarded it as an episode, and he slowly fell asleep on the bed. Everyone was busy with their own affairs. After Gulan made up the bed, she also took a rest. Classes will continue in the afternoon. When she woke up, except for Su Huanwen who was still sleeping in the dormitory, and Huayan who didn't know what she was doing, Yunjia and Yan Xiao were gone. Gulan washed her face and went to class. Before class, most of the students were in groups in the same dormitory, and Gulan seemed a bit conspicuous by being alone. But it doesn't matter. Because, more seriously, when she arrived in the classroom to start the first class before rebirth, the whole class looked at her strangely. Gulan, he's disgusting. Molesting in Momo. Xiao Hui let him go, but he spread rumors everywhere and beat Xiao Hui with his hands. He is simply inhuman. Yes, how can there be such a corrupt guy in the class? Gulan was too lazy to listen to such silly words. She finally found her seat according to the description in the book. Before she could sit down, two girls staggered towards her. The girl standing in front wore a high ponytail and glared at her like a female warrior. Gulan. I'm the one who speaks ill of you, why are you bullying Momo? Besides, what's wrong with the two bad things I said about you? You are still not a man, you don't even have this kind of bearing. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. The whole class looked at the two girls standing in front of Gulan. They seemed a little worried. Don't get close to Gulan, he's like a bug. It's unreasonable. Quickly take Momo away, this person is a lunatic. Hey, Gulan, I'm warning you. Girls are innocent, you're a man with a man's stomach. Gulan was very calm. She is not a man, why should she show a man's belly? She doesn't even have a man's stomach, where does the amount come from? She threw her school bag on the table and stretched herself, ignoring the girl with the high ponytail. The angry brows of the girl with the high ponytail were furrowed together. You! What's your attitude? I'm talking to you. Gulan sat down, raised her eyebrows lazily and looked at the high ponytail. The corners of her lips were naturally raised, and her smile was a bit naughty. She said in a lazy and impatient voice. You talking to me? So what? You want me to hit you? Gao Ponytail looked shocked. You didn't even listen to what I was talking to you. Gulan said. I never listen to dogs barking. I'm sorry, I insulted dogs. You are a creature that is hard to describe, and what you say is not like that of a Carboen-based creature. I don't know how to answer it. The angry face of the girl with the high ponytail changed color. You scolded me. You scolded me. Gulan thought it was funny. She leaned on the chair, put her hands behind her head, and said lazily. You scold me, I can't scold you. Your gender is inlaid with gold, and you bought insurance for being scolded. Go to a certain blog to engage in gender antagonism, and it's your pleasure to spray with other people for 3 days and 3 nights. Don't come and bother me. Gulan was a little sleepy after she finished speaking. She forgot what the girl with the high ponytail was called and didn't pay attention. Anyway, under the influence of the original heroine, the chance of brain damage is very high. In fact, Gulan thinks that many male and female protagonists in novels not only have their own protagonist aura, but also emit light waves of mental retardation. Let the people around them forcibly lower their intelligence. Every time I read a brain-dead novel, the author of Gulan's book spraying has more comments than the book written by the original author. She doesn't want to speak now, hoping that the other party will be interested. But obviously, Gulan was still too simple. Gao Ponytail blushed from anger, and the former heroine and Momo, who was waiting for her best friend to come out, finally spoke. Gulan. I'm sorry, we were a little aggressive. But Si Wei didn't mean it, she didn't mean it. Gulan glanced at the original heroine. I have to say that as a heroine, she is really good looking. And Momo has fair skin, round eyes and bouncy lips. Just looking at his face, he thought it was a porcelain doll. For short, just looking at his face, he thought he was a beautiful dead person. Gulan thinks that Momo's appearance is very suitable for an abusive relationship with Huayan from the 444 dormitory. The domineering school girl's plot is outdated, isn't it attractive to be sickly and beautiful? However, according to Momo's IQ, it is estimated that he would be killed within a second. Thinking about it, Gulan looked at Momo with a smile on her face, only to see that Momo felt chills all over her body, her slender body trembling slightly like a frightened deer. This immediately aroused everyone's desire to protect. 3 or 4 boys stood up and surrounded Momo. Gulan, you are enough. Gulan looked puzzled. I didn't say anything, it's not enough. Boys. And silently bit her lips, her soft hair draped over her shoulders, she said pitifully and charmingly. You don't have to worry about me, it's fine, there may be some misunderstanding between Gulan and I. He might have misunderstood me a bit, Gulan interrupted Momo's words. There is no misunderstanding. You stay away from me. Gulan didn't want to feel the ray of brain damage. And Momo. The day before, Gulan molested Momo, which led to being targeted by Xiao Hui, the school grassroots, but Gulan looked at Momo with eyes, It can be said that he saw a lump of meat Tiangong. Disgusted without any concealment. This hurt Momo's heart very much. She continued to bite her lip, seeing that Gulan closed her eyes without even looking at her. Tears welled up in Momo's eyes, and she spoke stubbornly and firmly. I see, I'm sorry, Gulan, for disturbing you. After speaking, An silently left the classroom with tears in her eyes. Gulan knew that this was called running in tears. An left silently, leaving behind a classroom of people glaring at Gulan. Gulan also understood that this was the base of the original heroine. Is her wave breaking into the enemy's interior? Yang Saiwei, the best friend who had just stood up for Momo, blushed and said viciously to Gulan. What did Momo do wrong? You want to bully her like this? You don't know how cute, kind, and pitiful Momo is. How could you bully her like this? Gulan stared at Yang Saiwei quietly for a while, recalling the plot in her mind. The original heroine, Momo, is an illegitimate daughter. Her mother lived a miserable life. She lived with her mother since she was a child, and she has a strong self-esteem. The heroine at this time just happened to be taken back to her father's house. As an illegitimate daughter, Momo was not loved by her father's eldest daughter and was left out in the cold. However, Momo is loved by the domineering President Xiao Hui, and there are licking dog number 1, 2, and 3 to her out of danger. So every time she was bullied or made a fool of herself, all kinds of men would come out to protect her. The final outcome is that Momo married into a wealthy family, and got the love of his father and everything from the family. Momo's mother also succeeded as a mistress and became a distinguished wife. Her half-sister died tragically, was wheeled, and her body was thrown into the sea, while her biological mother's tombstone was lifted. Hiss this plot. Gulan really wanted to vomit, but she didn't know how to vomit. Her expression was not very good looking. In the original book, this scene does not appear now. Because Gulan has already been beaten and excluded by the hero Xiao Hui, she is half dead. Yang Saiwei thought that Gulan was persuaded, so she sneered. Go and apologize silently. Don't hurt her, she is already very pitiful. You go and apologize to her and Xiao Hui. Otherwise, your family will die together. Gulan. It doesn't matter if you are brainless, just take your brain out. Gulan rubbed her temples, still not suitable for the ghostly painting style and speech of the original book. She continued to speak. I suggest you stay away from me, or I will really beat you. You are really annoying. Gulan chased her away for a long time before the annoying female lead team left cursing. Gulan sat on the seat and sighed deeply. It's so annoying, and they talk too much nonsense. But is this the end? No. In romance novels, the price of being an enemy of the original heroine is a little more serious than Gulan thought. She has also read other novels about wearing books. It stands to reason that whoever wears them will become the new protagonist. There must be some preferential treatment, right? Gulan did not. She is still a standard villain, the kind who seems to be expelled by the will of the world. The class bell rang, and the teacher who walked to the podium made Gulan almost leave. Because, this is another heroine licking a dog. The original book didn't even miss the handsome teacher, and came a refined teacher who had a crush on Momo. The elegant teacher Yan Yuxuan belongs to the handsome guy of the abstinence department, with a refined appearance and a gentle smile, but he is actually a black-bellied and cruel person. He knew the news that Momo was being bullied, so he directly changed classes with other teachers to teach Gulan, and wanted to teach Gulan a lesson. Yan Yuxuan stood on the podium, pushed the gold-rimmed glasses, looked at Gulan who was dozing off in the last row of the classroom, and slightly raised the corners of his lips. Student Gulan, dozing off during class is against classroom discipline. 10 points will be deducted from class points. 10 points will be deducted for fights. Write a 10,000 word self-criticism, and the whole school will recite it during the exercise tomorrow morning. When Gulan heard this, she couldn't help feeling angry. I don't write. Yan Yuxuan smiled, of course you can, then record it in the file. The entrance exam depends on your usual grades. I hope you don't do well in the exam, but your poor grades usually hold you back. Yan Yuxuan is one of the male supporting roles in the plot. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has good looks, high status, and good hands and eyes. It can be said that he is the most famous person in the school, and the principal must listen to him. Don't ask if it's reasonable. This is in a romance novel, the hero commits crimes every day but love acquits him, existence is reasonable. Gulan took a deep breath. He can't leave school now, unless he doesn't want to study and become a social boy. The broken rules of this school and this world are really infuriating. Yan Yuxuan felt very satisfied seeing Gulan's angry look. Dare to bully the kind Mo, what kind of punishment is this? Yan Yuxuan continued, since there is nothing else, let's continue the class. Starting today, I will teach you mathematics. Gulan, where did the teacher talk yesterday? Gulan remained silent. Yan Yuxuan smiled, if you don't listen to the class, you can be called a student? Look around, who is not better than you? Gulan's anger was provoked, she stood up abruptly, just about to speak the classroom door was knocked suddenly, and then, without waiting for a reaction from inside, the door was pushed open. The man standing outside the door raised the corners of his lips, his magnetic and hoarse voice carried a natural charm. Yo, are you in class? It seems I'm not late. He just stood here, and someone in the class gasped. Su Huanwen. It's Su Huanwen from that dormitory. Why did he come here? My God, it's that devil. Su Huanwen smiled playfully, his eyes swept over Yan Yuxuan standing on the podium, and finally fell on Gulan who was flushed with anger, and then he smiled. I'm here to find my little roommate. I've changed classes, and I'll be a classmate from now on. Gulan, are you surprised or not? The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Gulan was pleasantly surprised, very surprised. She never thought that Su Huanwen would suddenly run into her classroom. According to the plot of the original book, the people in dormitory 444 are in 5 classes. They talk very little in class. No one or the teacher dares to provoke them, and they are too lazy to talk to others. But now, Su Huanwen suddenly came to her class, which is tantamount to the villain in the book forcibly intervening in the plot of the heroine of the original book. Gulan didn't make a sound. Su Huanwen slightly raised his brows. Standing at the door of the classroom was a beautiful sight. He wasn't wearing a school uniform, but casual clothes that looked expensive. His eyebrows were raised unruly, and his facial features were just right, as if cut to size, especially his eyes, which were still blurred when he was smiling. But it was obvious that the whole class was afraid of him. Even Yan Yuxuan couldn't help but frown tightly, pushed his glasses, and said to Su Huanwen. Student Su, you need to apply for changing classes. The school has arrangements for which students belong to which class. Su Huanwen didn't bother to talk to him at all, he raised his foot and walked towards Gulan, smiling as he walked. Arrangement, I have arranged myself. I feel that I belong to the same category as Gulan. With that said, Su Huanwen walked up to Gulan, and sat down on the empty seat beside Gulan with a smile on his face. Because Gulan provoked an Momo, the whole class hated to avoid Gulan. There was someone sitting next to Gulan, but now that classmate also changed the seat, and there happened to be an empty seat next to Gulan. This made Su Huanwen cheaper. Su Huanwen sat down, put his school bag on the table, and winked at Gulan. Coincidence? Gulan didn't know what Su Huanwen was thinking, but he was a good person. Gulan nodded vigorously, developing a revolutionary friendship with Su Huanwen. What a coincidence! Good brother! Su Huanwen was taken aback for a moment, then smiled more playfully. I don't know if it's good or not, but it's true that you're funny. Gulan automatically ignored the word fun in Su Huanwen's words, and interpreted it as "you are the real thing." Gulan said emotionally. "Hello, me, everyone, is really good, good brother." Su Huanwen was taken aback for a moment, then laughed lowly. "Oh? Maybe so." Su Huanwen came here because he realized that being with Gulan would be interesting. He's not interested in helping people get ahead or anything like that. However, everyone in the class didn't think so. Yan Yuxuan's eyebrows were almost twisted into a pimple, and the line of his lips was tightened. He understood why Gulan was so arrogant and dared to bully in Momo. It turned out that Gulan hooked up with the person in that horrible and disgusting dormitory. Hee. Think that group of people can protect him? Gulan is just a dog being teased. Thinking of this, Yan Yuxuan opened his eyebrows, and he picked up his book. Since Su Huanwen wants to come, we must welcome new students. Everyone applauds. There was applause in the class. Gulan found that the applause was all scary, and some girls, such as in Momo's best friend Yang Siwei, looked at Su Huanwen with wolfish eyes. Oh, by the way, Su Huanwen seems to be a flirtatious young man who never refuses anyone. Could it be that Yang Siwei had plans for Su Huanwen? Will Su Huanwen refuse? Forget it, it doesn't matter to her whether she refuses or not, she should attend the class first. The class in this era is not the same as her original class, she doesn't want to be a scumbag. Gulan quickly restrained her thoughts and listened to the class seriously. Su Huanwen held his chin and looked at Gulan, the smile on his lips never faded. He thought Gulan was very interesting. Hitting Xiao Hui, crying in Momo, being targeted by the whole class, and this guy is still listening to the class seriously? The heart is really big enough. Su Huanwen thought. Yan Yuxuan didn't give up on the whole job. He wrote a question on the blackboard and looked down the podium. Who will answer this question? Gulan, come here. Yan Yuxuan directly called Gulan without giving anyone time to react. Su Huanwen glanced at Yan Yuxuan. Yan Yuxuan smiled coldly at Su Huanwen. The two pass messages by sight. Yan Yuxuan, don't think you are great, your people are the same as mine. Su Huanwen only glanced at Yan Yuxuan, but his misty eyes obviously didn't take Yan Yuxuan seriously. He's just here for the show. Add some fun to his boring life. Besides, Su Huanwen was very curious about Gulan's reaction. The snakes in their dormitory were subdued by Gulan, and when they saw Gulan, they sneaked away obediently. Gulan even looked excited when she saw Huayan dragging the corpse. Is this kid really not afraid of death, or is there something wrong with his mind? As Su Huanwen thought about it, the smile in his eyes deepened. But Gulan didn't think so much. She stared at the questions on the blackboard, while calling up the system in her brain to carefully read the description of the original book. What kind of original book is this? No answers to homework questions? There are no exam paper questions? Don't write anything about the exam? However, she was lucky, among so many problems on her back, this one happened to be there. Gulan was a little numb, she sighed and stood up. Sure enough, only by doing it yourself can you have enough food and clothing. Sure enough, she didn't want to pretend, but her strength didn't allow it. Seeing Gulan standing up, Yan Yuxuan shifted his gaze from Su Huanwen to Gulan, and his brows furrowed again. Gulan, do you want to answer this question? Gulan nodded. Well, the answer is 17 times the square root of 3, which requires two formulas. With that said, Gulan rolled up her sleeves. Should I speak at the podium? Yan Yuxuan froze for a moment, he stared at Gulan's face carefully. Gulan also raised her head to look back at Yan Yuxuan, and said lazily. Teacher, I have the word student written on my face. Yan Yuxuan replied subconsciously, no. If not, how dare you ask me to get up to answer the question, you are not afraid that I will slap you in the face. Gulan especially wanted to stretch. These days, how dare you wear books if you don't have any special skills? Her grades were not very good before time travel, but her memory was good. In order to pretend to be forceful, she recited the full text of Jin Yang's 4 famous novels Three-Body Problem. I also memorized all the questions, and now I have forgotten a lot, but occasionally pretending is enough. Fighting is also good, there are many handsome people and fans. Thinking about it carefully, except for being unlucky and being hit by a car when going out, everything else is pretty good. The main reason is that Gulan has to be strong all his life. If she doesn't like it, she just wants to say it, and if she says it, she will be bullied again. If she is bullied, she will learn the other person's specialty, and then use her strength to slap her in the face. This is quite similar to a famous internet celebrity during the Winter Olympics. People who want to be strong all their lives will always have various skills. Yan Yuxuan never expected that Gulan would say that. His handsome face could hardly be concealed, and there was a bit of gloom in his eyes. I'm a teacher, and I didn't mean to make things difficult for you. But I want to deliberately make things difficult for you. Gulan put her hands in her pockets, yawned lazily and walked up to the podium. When passing by Yan Yuxuan, Gulan stopped. The position of the two people is facing each other and passing each other. Yan Yuxuan's elegant face could not restrain his angry expression, while Gulan faced the blackboard, with the corners of his lips curled up, speaking in a moderate voice. Actually, I don't want to embarrass you, but you want to embarrass me. Today I finally joined Dormitory 444, please don't let me lose face in front of my roommates. Gulan said, picked up the chalk, and wrote the answer on the blackboard. After finishing writing, Gulan also asked a question by the way. Teacher, I don't know how to do this question, please explain it to me. Gulan wrote a world-class mathematical problem, the Asida-Fon conjecture that was solved by Lu Lu, a talented boy from Liaoning, China in her era. There is a basis for Gulan's writing according to the time when the original book was published. Lu Lu hadn't broken through this problem yet. Then, unless the author of the original book breaks through this problem himself, then the people in the plot of the original book should not be able to. Gulan's estimation was not wrong. Yan Yuxuan's face changed after seeing this question, and then he said. After learning a few math problems, you're going to embarrass the teacher? Okay, I'll show you when I solve them. Hearing this, Gulan was stunned for a moment, she turned her head to look at Yan Yuxuan, with a sense of crisis. In the original book, this Yan Yuxuan is a 22-year-old math genius who graduated with a Ph.D. He came to school to help his unreliable friend, and then fell in love with the lovely and kind heroine. If the plot characters grow up, then Yan Yuxuan may really break through this problem. Thoughts were spinning quickly, Gulan remained calm. Oh? Then I hope the teacher can figure it out. Gulan put down the chalk and returned to her seat. Su Huanwen looked at Gulan with his chin in his hand, and raised his voice at the end, seeming very interested. You study well. Gulan shook her head, so. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Su Huanwen continued, average, third in the world? Sida Fong guesses you can understand. Gulan shook her head again, no, I won't. Su Huanwen hasn't been in contact with Gulan for a long time, but he found that Gulan has a characteristic, that is, he likes to save face and doesn't like to lose. So Su Huanwen simply moved the table, put the table and Gulan's table together, approached Gulan, and looked down at Gulan. His eyes patrolled Gulan's body, as if he wanted to see through Gulan. Ordinary people see through their hearts, but Su Huanwen's gaze seemed to want to strip Gulan naked. Gulan subconsciously grasped her collar, and subconsciously looked at her flat chest that was almost sunken. What's wrong? Su Huanwen said with a low smile. You can't fool me, you will solve this conjecture. Seeing this, Gulan had no other choice. She really didn't like being slapped in the face by people she didn't like, so she sighed. Actually, I have a friend. Yan Yuxuan looked at Gulan and Su Huanwen whispering, his eyes were deep, he pushed his glasses, and did not make things difficult for Gulan. He was thinking about how to solve the Sita-Fon conjecture. Mature men will deliberately embarrass each other, but will find ways to make the other party more embarrassing. He looked down at the book with a cold smile on his lips. If you can solve a few problems, you dare to be a teacher? A frog at the bottom of a well has little knowledge, so he doesn't know that there are people outside of people, and there is a sky beyond the sky. He didn't lower his voice, deliberately letting the whole class hear him. However, no one expected to be stimulated by Yan Yuxuan. Gulan, who is going to be strong all her life, went to the internet cafe at night, wrote a paper under the name I Have a Friend overnight, and also contributed to several websites. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. After Gulan finished writing the thesis and researching the information, it was already dawn, and a layer of crow blue appeared under her eyes. She yawned and found that she had bad breath after not sleeping all night. Oh. This is a bit embarrassing. I didn't go back to dormitory 444 all night. Her actions were beyond the expectations of many people, such as Su Huanwen who wanted to play with Gulan at night, Zheng Taiyun's who had a good impression of Gulan, and Huayan who was very interested in Gulan's body. For example, security. Gulan paid the night fee for the internet cafe and was about to go back to the dormitory, but when she walked to the school gate, she was stopped by the security guard. The school is fully enclosed, and the security guard asked how Gulan got out. And Gulan was even more puzzled, I walked out last night. Look at me like this, do I seem to be able to fly? Last night, she probably sneaked out when the security guard took over. She went out, that's right, she didn't lie. The security guard was puzzled, walk out? That's how you came out. Can you show me? After the security guard finished speaking, Gulan walked from the school gate to the inside of the school, and turned her head when she was done walking. Let's go like this. The security guard didn't expect Gulan to leave as soon as he said it, and what they said was not the same thing at all. Gulan didn't want to entangle with the security guards anymore when she returned to school. She sang well, you are the wind and I am the sand, lingering to the end of the world. Gulan felt that they were you are crazy and I am stupid. She wanted to go back to rest and not allow herself to die suddenly. The security guard frowned and strode over. Who are you? What class are you in? How did you go out last night? When Gulan heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. This guy doesn't know who he is? As soon as Gulan's mind turned, he ran to the dormitory. Imagine this picture: a handsome young man was walking slowly just now, and turned his head to greet the security guard. Then there was no sign, and he lifted his foot and rushed forward. This also stunned the security guard. Hey! Stop! Which class are you in? Who are you? Stop! Stop! On the campus in the morning, the sky is bright, and the teenagers are running around the campus on the playground. How youthful and energetic they are, the old men who pass by will sigh it's nice to be young. Gulan ran quickly, went back to the dormitory building and climbed to the 4th floor, striding to join the 2 stairs. Gulan rushed to the door of the 444 dormitory. There is a person standing at the door of 444. To be honest, early in the morning, the corridor was still dark, and the voice-activated lights were not on. Only the green emergency light on the ground was on. There was a person standing here. No matter how he looked at it, he was terrified. Gulan stopped and greeted tentatively. Hi bro, good morning. The person at the door turned his head, but his face was still invisible under the dim light, only a black silhouette could be seen. Hello. The person at the door spoke, his voice was unexpectedly gentle, so gentle that hearing his voice, it seemed as if his heart would be comforted. Gulan was a little afraid that it was a ghost, but after hearing the voice, she was not controlled by her mind, and her mood naturally eased. As soon as Gulan realized her state, she knew who was standing at the door. There is only one person in the original book who has this miraculous ability to calm people, her last roommate, Jing Yongkui with dual personality. Well, Jing Yongkui still has serious cleanliness. Gulan, who was a supporting role in the original book, once deliberately soiled Jing Yongkui's shoes, and Jing Yongkui drowned Gulan and the shoes in the original book together in the bath. Soaked for a day and a night. Gulan almost drowned several times. One of Jing Yongkui's dual personalities is very gentle, and he will come to save people every time. Then, after being rescued to take a breath, Jing Yongkui's other personality will appear, forcing Gulan into a near-death situation again. Even though Gulan who traveled here was just a bystander, she still felt that this kind of person could not be provoked and try not to provoke him. She even suspected that Jing Yongkui didn't actually have a dual personality, and he acted both personalities himself. This can make life a little more interesting. However, this is just her guess as a reader. Gulan thought about a lot of things and forgot to speak. Jing Yongkui didn't seem to mind, his voice was still gentle, so gentle that it made people forget the fear of darkness. Did you go the wrong way? This is the 4th floor. Gulan came to her senses. I just want to come to the 4th floor. I'm new here yesterday. My name is Gulan. Gulan. Jing Yongkui pronounced Gulan's name in a soft, sympathetic voice. Gulan. What a nice name. He must be as cute as they said. His voice was neither slow nor fast, and even his tone was in a comfortable rhythm. He was trying to confuse Gulan. When Gulan heard Jing Yongkui's words, she nodded. Ah, yes, I am indeed a cute person, and I know that. Jing Yongkui? Gulan's answer was a bit beyond Jing Yongkui's expectation. After all, most people would not say such cheeky words. Gulan is very sleepy now, she feels that her dead grandma is waving at her and taking her away. She rubbed her temples and said, "That, can I go back and rest, I'm so sleepy." Jing Yongkui looked at Gulan quietly, his voice still gentle. "Of course, you don't have a key. I'll open the door for you." "Thank you." Gulan walked up to Jing Yongkui, saw Jing Yongkui took out the key and unlocked the dormitory door. She wanted to say something. Jing Yongkui suddenly chuckled. "I advise you to take a bath first." After entering, there is a surprise left by him in the bathroom. They don't need any more filth in their dorms. Jing Yongkui thought with a smile on his face. Gulan turned her head. Hey! She almost sent Jing Yongkui away in the morning when she didn't brush her teeth. Jing Yongkui stepped back 3 steps, his face darkened. His voice was still very gentle. "Let me advise you to brush your teeth again." Gulan, well, listen to my explanation. I stayed up all night writing a thesis, so. Gulan really wants to save face. How could she leave a bad impression on her roommates after she finally entered the 444 dormitory? She is not this kind of person. "I usually brush my teeth every day, and I also buy mouthwash, really." Gulan pressed forward step by step, while Jing Yongkui retreated step by step. Jing Yongkui couldn't keep the smile on his face. "Okay, I got it. You go. You go." Gulan was very frantic. Jing Yongkui couldn't hold back anymore. He originally wanted to play with the newcomers, so he waited at the door of the dormitory, but he didn't expect that his plan would end because of the special smell before it was carried out. Jing Yongkui left. Gulan stayed at the door, scratching her hair to explain. I drink more hot water. I really drink more hot water." Jing Yongkui, listen to me. I'm really not that kind of person. I'm really not. Don't go, listen to my explanation. Gulan was devastated. At this moment, Yan Xiao's cold voice came from the dormitory. "It's so early in the morning. What's the noise at the door?" Yan Xiao seemed to be angry about getting up. Gulan walked into the dormitory. Su Huanwen turned on the dormitory light. Gulan squinted her eyes to get used to the light, and then heard Yunzhe's voice without any fluctuations. The probability of Gulan and Jing Yongkui having a dispute at the door is 92%. Gulan looked up at Yunzhe, who was sleeping near the door. Since the dormitory is a fusion of many dormitories, each person has his own single bed, and the beds look good. Yun's bed is made of wood, and there are many game consoles on the bed. Yunzhe was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling with wide-eyed eyes, without any sleepiness in his eyes. He really looked like a robot. Yan Xiao slept on the same row as Yunzhe, close to the door. He frowned, directly covered his head with the quilt, and turned his back to Gulan, obviously getting up. And Huayan probably went to collect materials, but he was not there. Gulan's bed is the same as Huayan's, in the middle of the two beds. Huayan's is between Yunzhe and Su Huanwen, while Gulan's is between Yan Xiao and Jing Yongkui. Gulan didn't pay much attention to where other people slept yesterday. Why does she feel that this position is weird? She wants to be head to foot with Yan Xiao and head to head with Jing Yongkui, or head to Jing Yongkui's feet. Gulan was silent for a while, looking at Yan Xiao, who was wrapped in a quilt and getting angry. She didn't want to point her head at Yan Xiao's feet. She was going to go to bed and sleep soundly. Su Huanwen leaned lazily on the head of the bed. His position was inside against the wall. Gulan was still standing at the door, looking straight at Gulan. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse, as well as the low hum of the cello, and his voice was very gorgeous. "Yo, I seem to have heard something that I shouldn't have heard. You said, you are really not such a person? Don't go, listen to your explanation. That's not fun to hear." Speaking of this, Su Huanwen showed his usual cynical expression. "I thought, you didn't come back last night because you were spoiled by Jing Yongkui." Gulan always felt weird hearing these words. Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com. Bad game. At this time, Yunzhe spoke. His voice was emotionless, but what he said was more real. Jing Yongkui does not accept new roommates to come to the dormitory. Every roommate, no matter what, will be finally denied by Jing Yongkui. Su Huanwen seemed to like chatting with Gulan very much. He saw that Gulan came in intact, and that Jing Yongkui seemed to be fleeing in a hurry, so he felt that watching Gulan's play was really interesting. He said, "If we hadn't signed an agreement that we should not leave the campus more than 20 times a year, Jing Yongkui would have left long ago. Jing Yongkui even tried to clean us up every day." Having said that, Su Huanwen smiled. That snake was originally used to bite Huayan, who came in second in the dormitory, but Huayan is also a pervert, and Jing Yongkui seems to have failed. Then, here comes the question. "Gulan, how did you pass the test?" "Gulan. The fierce girl was silent. Gulan was silent for a while, then spoke. "Can I not say it?" Su Huanwen shook his head. "No, if you don't say anything, I will kick you out right now. The door of the dormitory will not be opened to dishonest children." Gulan was really sleepy. She didn't want to take a bath, she didn't want to talk, she just wanted to sleep. She sat on her bed and yawned. "Okay," I said. "It's because I didn't speak very well to Jing Yongkui. Jing Yongkui seems to be in a good mood today, very gentle, so I have a bad tone. He was a little injured, so he ran away." Su Huanwen obviously didn't believe it. He lightly touched his lips with his long fingers, smiled and shook his head. What a liar! The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Gulan was silent again. "Actually, it's okay, old man. I'm telling the truth. Bad breath. Really bad breath. The mouth smell is bad." Gulan told the truth, but no one in the dormitory believed it. Sure enough, the truth is always in the hands of a few people, right? Gulan was speechless, so she fell asleep, Omega, zzz speechless means speechless. This time, Gulan did not regard herself as a woman at all, nor did she regard her roommate as an outsider. In terms of gender, she almost kept it from herself. On the contrary, none of the extremely smart roommates doubted her gender. After all, they didn't really believe that she was a woman. Gulan fell asleep on the bed for a second. Both Su Huanwen and Yunzhe were slightly taken aback. Su Huanwen sighed. It's really not good. Yunz, turn off the lights, and let's sleep for a while. Yunzhe nodded, okay. Gulan has a 21% chance of lying. Su Huanwen's expression became playful. That's it, don't worry about it, Yunz, you should go to bed, you are still a dwarf because you don't have a good rest every day. Good night. Yunzhe said obediently. Su Huanwen, good night. Gulan was in a drowsy sleep, and she also spoke. Good night Makabaka, good night Yugibigu, good night Xiadiandian, good night Dingdingch, good night Fifeiyu. Students cannot sleep late. Gulan woke up slowly under the biological clock, with her hands flat on her chest, ready to take a deep breath of fresh air to welcome a new morning. Wait, what is this? Gulan turned her head and saw a beautiful and large circle of paper flowers beside the bed. This is wreath? Gulan woke up with fright. What's the matter? She fell asleep and time traveled again. Also keep people from sleeping? Gulan Tang sat up and put her hands on her chest. They are gone. Wait, this dormitory is still 444 dormitory. Gulan forced herself to calm down. She looked around, and only saw a wreath in a dormitory, and a man standing not far away, wearing a mask and rubber surgical gloves. The man's skin was like frost and snow, even glowing porcelain white under the sun. A pair of eyes that were exposed outside the mask were extremely beautiful, so beautiful that they even had a fairy air, and the tail of long hair hung on his shoulders. Seeing that Gulan woke up, he opened his mouth. You're awake. The voice sounded a little regretful. Gulan didn't understand what was going on at all. Could it be that the people in the dormitory used her for experiments when she woke up? Does she? Huayan said with a slight smile in his voice, do you like the gift I gave you? Gulan. Gulan looked left and right. Gift, you are talking about a wreath, right? This thing is a gift? Gulan suddenly realized a problem at this moment. Wait, she overslept and her roommate was by the bed. That would be tantamount to her identity as a woman disguised as a man has been exposed. Not so fast? This is not consistent with the direction of normal novels, nor the direction of abnormal novels. Gulan is stupid, very stupid, very stupid. Huayan looked at Gulan's expression and spoke. Only I know. Gulan froze for a moment. Hey. Huayan took off his mask, revealing his red lips like a vampire, and the corners of his lips curled into a smile. From the moment you came to the dormitory, I knew that you were a woman. Hey, keep your voice down. Gulan is numb. My hands and feet are numb, and my head is buzzing. This is not appropriate. Huayan smiled, the corners of his lips curled up, but he was only smiling, and his eyes still looked like Gujing Wubo looking at the dead. Don't be afraid, no one in the dormitory knows except me. They haven't looked at you seriously at all, but I can see through your bones at a glance. Gulan mines. Dressing up as a man and living in a boys' dormitory is a way of surviving in danger. If the roommates know that it is a girl who is still living in the boys' dormitory, this is 18 bans. Gulan felt that this identity could no longer be pretended, otherwise she should transfer to another school. However, it doesn't seem like you can transfer quickly. In the original book, Gulan was almost killed and failed to transfer, which shows this. Gulan's expression was very subtle, and she was thinking again, maybe Huayan has no evidence? She can dress up. Huayan tilted his head, and the tail of his long hair, which was casually tied with a white hair band, slipped from his shoulders to the back of his head. Because of this movement, and his deep eyes looked directly at Gulan. Nobody cares whether a dead person is a man or a woman. You don't need to be nervous. Gulan jumped off the bed. She looked at the time. Here, let's forcefully change the subject. 10 o'clock in the morning. They all go to class, so you're going to give me a funeral here. The sun is so big and the yang energy is so strong, you are not afraid of me cheating on the corpse. This is too hell. Huayan looked at Gulan. He seemed not very interested in Gulan's gender. Huayan slightly hooked the corners of her lips. It's just a funeral. It's not a big deal. Your bones are beautiful, and I like them very much. Gulan was terrified. You don't know how to touch me, do you? Huayan shook his head. I don't like to touch living people. If you like, after you die, I can touch your bones and hang you on my bed. Gulan. This hobby is really not acceptable to ordinary people. The wreaths in this dormitory are really unlucky. Gulan looked to the side and suddenly found something wrong. What is the name on this wreath? The elegiac couplet on the wreath is almost white, except for the words written in small black letters below. I mourn Huayan deeply. A wreath for Huayan? For a moment, Gulan suspected that she was wearing a book again. This time, she stopped being a human being and traveled to the underworld. Gulan was silent. Huayan was also silent for a while, and then Huayan suddenly smiled. He still has that smug smile. Huayan has a beautiful face that people will never forget, with a shadow of beauty, glamorous but without a trace of femininity. However, he has no expression, as if living in a strange world isolated from the rest of the world. Huayan looked at Gulan and said with a smile. It was discovered, these are all mine. There is no place to put them, so I put them here for you to play with. This is not fun. Gulan thought about the plot of the original book again. There are too few descriptions in the original book, and the information about Huayan is also very good. When Gulan was seriously thinking about the plot, Huayan walked over quietly and put his hand on her face. The cold hand seemed to have just touched the cold body, and Gulan shivered from the cold. Huayan didn't seem to be used to the temperature on Gulan's body either, so he retracted his hand, but he still spoke with the corners of his lips curled up. Why don't you scream and curse? This confused Gulan. What? Huayan didn't seem to understand what Gulan was thinking. He looked at Gulan carefully. I'm very unlucky. Gulan came to her senses. She held Huayan's hand and pressed it to her face. She just woke up with a hot face and felt uncomfortable, but Huayan's cool hands just helped her cool down and woke her up. After all, I just woke up and my brain is not enough. Thinking of this, Gulan thought of another point, and she spoke cautiously. I'll go wash my mouth first. She traveled to the novel. All the Aboriginal people in the novel have no tone, but she has. Sure enough, the painting styles of the traversers are different. Huayan understood what Gulan meant, and he spoke. I'm not Jing Yongkui. I don't feel anything. After all, I often come into contact with formalin. Do you think I smell strange? Gulan has social miscellaneous syndrome. After Huayan finished speaking, Gulan took a deep breath and smelled it seriously. Well, you are still a handsome man with xiang. I'm going to rinse my mouth, just wait for me. After finishing speaking, Gulan let go of Huayan's hand and walked to the bathroom. She said as she walked. By the way, if someone else gave you the wreath, I suggest you call the police. Giving wreaths to living people will not be criminalized, but it is an illegal act, and they must bear administrative responsibility for public security in accordance with the law. Detention for not more than 5 days or a fine of not more than 500 yuan, if the circumstances are more serious, a detention of not less than 5 days but not more than 10 days may be imposed, and a fine of not more than 500 yuan may be imposed. If there is any way you can't call the police, I suggest you also buy a wreath for the other party, drop some formalin in it by the way, and wish his body will not rot and wait for you to die with 1,000 knives. As Gulan said, she closed the door of the bathroom in the dormitory. She took a lot of fun before reacting again. Wait, diverting his attention caused my attention to be diverted. Does he know that I am a woman? She was stimulated too much, and Gulan didn't have time to straighten out all the relationships. She opened the door and went out, deciding to pack up and run away again. At this time, Huayan stood beside the wreath beside her bed, looking at him quietly. Have to say, a beauty is a beauty, standing next to the black and white wreath, on the contrary weakened the gloom on Huayan's body, giving him a feeling of beautiful but miserable. It's like an old black and white photo of the Republic of China. The beauty didn't speak, but secretly sad. Gulan scratched her hair, suddenly couldn't say a lot of words in front of the beauty, held back for a long time, and only uttered one sentence. Take care. You can listen to my suggestion, I'll go first. Huayan looked at Gulan quietly, not understanding why Gulan wanted to leave. Why go? Gulan blinked, you know my biggest secret, I must go. Otherwise, I'll wait to be discovered and dismembered. This world is really dangerous. She believed too much that she looked like a man, and ended up slapping her face in the next second. She had to be more serious. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk. She also hoped that after she transmigrated into the book, it would turn into a cool story, but it turns out that the villain is the biggest factor that dominates the atmosphere of a book. Gulan sighed, and was about to roll up the bed, when a cold hand fell on her hand again. Huayan's gaze was cold, he said. I know your secret, and you want to leave. But you know my secret, and you can't leave again. Gulan had goosebumps on the back of the hand touched by Huayan. You. Huayan's bright red lips touched lightly up and down. Leave. I'll cover up your gender for you, stay with me. I can't sleep late at night, but if I look at your perfect skeleton, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com, I might be able to sleep peacefully. Gulan? She really wanted to understand this sentence as a confession, but she was really panicked. Can I refuse? Gulan said. Huayan didn't talk nonsense, and took out a scalpel from his pocket. Gulan, I never expected this plot to unfold. Is it because I am not perverted enough, or the world is too perverted? But life is like rape, since you can't escape it, enjoy it. Gulan adjusted her mentality and nodded vigorously. Okay, then you said, if my secret is discovered by others, I will trouble you. As a reward, I will help you fall asleep. Brother keeps his word, pull the hook. As she spoke, Gulan raised her other hand and stretched out her little finger. Huayan was obviously stunned for a moment, he looked at Gulan's outstretched little finger, then at Gulan, his hands paused for a long time, as if he was struggling with something. Obviously, he has not had this kind of contact with people. Gulan is a very relaxed person after thinking about it. How can you live in 444 if you are not very courageous? She grabbed Huayan's hand that was not holding the scalpel, and forcibly hooked Huayan's little finger with her little finger. She smiled brightly. If you hang yourself with a hook, you can't change it for 100 years. If you change it, you'll be a puppy. Forced. Huayan froze for a moment, then suddenly smiled. He himself did not expect to smile, so the smile is natural and beautiful. Gulan also laughed, you look so pretty when you smile. The more you smile, the better. At this time, the dormitory door was pushed open without a sound. Su Huanwen, who was standing at the door, raised his eyebrows when he saw this scene. Yo, Gulan hooked up with Jing Yongkui in the morning, and held hands with Huayan in the morning? She's more flirtatious than him, hey? The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Gulan's gender opening was discovered by Huayan. She was very calm on the surface, but in fact, she was still very calm in her heart. If you find out, you will find out, she is not dead, she can ride a plane even if she is not dead. Gulan's biggest advantage is that she has a very good attitude. Originally, time travel was random, so she wasn't afraid of anything. Of course, she will also sum up experience. She asked the late but completely useless system, why was I discovered so quickly? To be reasonable, this plot arrangement is unreasonable. If you write it to me, I won't write it like this. In the dormitory, Su Huanwen, Yan Xiao, Yun Zhe, and Yan Xiao are not willing to approach me, and I look like a man, so it will be difficult for them to find out. If the roommates in other books have this kind of personality, they really won't reveal their secrets at the beginning. Mainly, why arrange a necrophile for me? Or a guy who takes a fancy to my bones? This kind of attribute is 1 in a million. It belongs to the jackpot among jackpots, the kind that will step on the coffin if you win. Reasonably speaking, people like Huayan shouldn't be placed in this kind of brain-dead campus love story, it's too condescending. It should be arranged in the novel Sick Husband Falls in Love with Me. While attending class, Gulan complained to the system in her heart. The whole class looked at her unhappily as before, but Gulan ignored her. Su Huanwen didn't come to the classroom for class, so it was probably a whim that she sat next to her, and now he's back to a normal low-key life if he's not interested. Anyway, this group of people didn't find out that she was a pretty girl. Gulan and the system kept complaining, not asking for a response, just trying to vent their desires. At this time, the system that hadn't spoken since Gulan crossed over suddenly spoke. Its voice is very cute, like a 6 or 7-year-old child who has not been weaned, whistling with milk. Tell me, is there a possibility, Huayan is your roommate, but is the villain in other novels? Gulan was startled. Oh my god, the system is cheating. System. The system seemed silent for a while before speaking. I didn't cheat, I just, sorry to talk to you. It's the first time to do a system, and I'm a little nervous. This time, it was Gulan's turn to poke 6 points. Gulan. Gulan felt that this system was too unreliable, so she came out to work before weaning. Gulan thought so in her heart, but the little system suddenly became angry. He said childishly and angrily. You still say I? How angry? I won't talk to you anymore. After speaking, the system is silent. Gulan was left stunned. Hey! Her voice was a bit loud, because she was too shocked, and after the was over, she kept calling the small system in her heart. I was wrong. You are weaned, and you can tell how many years you have been weaned from your voice. Leaving without saying a word, that's not a man's behavior. You're done talking. What about the villains in other novels? Is this world still a wonderful world with multiple tracks intertwined? Little system, little tong tong, little sweet? You are my heart, you are my liver, you are my sweet store. No matter how affectionately Gulan called, the small system that didn't know whether it was weaned or not would never make any sound. But the teacher's voice became louder. Student, what are you doing? You don't listen to the class, what are you doing all the time? Gulan felt that she always had some conflicts with the teacher in the classroom. To be honest, she had been struggling with her gender exposure in class. I really didn't pay attention to what kind of teacher the teacher in the class was. She looked up at. This female teacher is so young, probably just graduated from university, around 22 years old, with a student look on her face. This teacher seems to be the tragic female supporting role in the original book. Because she fell in love with Yan Yuxuan, who is also a teacher, in the end, Yan Yuxuan was afraid of being misunderstood by the heroine, so she asked someone to transfer her to a remote mountainous area where she would basically never leave the mountain for the rest of her life. Now the young female teacher's face was flushed with anger, and she angrily scolded Gulan. What are you looking at me for? Why don't you pay attention to your lectures? You are so young, how can you get into college if you don't pay attention to your lectures? Gulan spoke subconsciously. Maybe you're pretty. Strictly speaking, the female supporting role has indeed crushed the heroine in terms of appearance. What Gulan said was also true. The female teacher was not happy at all when the handsome guy praised her for her good looks. She stared at Gulan with wide eyes, and when she heard what Gulan said, her body trembled slightly and she became even more angry. This is the second week of her internship after graduation. If she does not perform well, she will be fired. But even so, she was worried when she saw the students who were too distracted, and couldn't help but want to take care of it. Seeing that Gulan hadn't spoken yet, the female teacher strode towards the podium. You are so glib. You want to find a girlfriend to go to college, get into a good college, and meet better girls, understand? What were you doing just now? Gulan seriously thought about what to say. I said that I was talking to the intelligent creatures in my body, do you believe it? Female teacher. At this time, Momo, who had been studying hard, raised her hand silently. Seeing that the female teacher ignored her, Momo stood up voluntarily. Teacher, he is Gulan, the worst student in the school. You don't have to be angry because of him. Xiao Hui, the hero of the original book who had been reading jokes, raised the corners of his lips charmingly. He held his chin and looked at Momo affectionately with the attitude of I'm worth 100 million. He said with a low smile. My women just talk. After finishing speaking, Xiao Hui stood up calmly, Teacher, drive Gulan away. A person like him is not worthy of sitting in the classroom. This time it was Gulan's turn to be silent. The female teacher was also silent for a while, then she frowned and said to Xiao Hui. Sit down, classmate, don't just say things like driving people away. There are things like unworthy. No one is more noble than anyone else. Gulan didn't expect that what the female teacher said was quite upright, so she couldn't help but nodded. Correct. The female teacher glared at Gulan. That's right. What's wrong? You know it. Listen to the class well, what will happen if the students don't listen to the class? Gulan still wanted to say a few words, but Momo spoke again. Teacher, you are still too naive, you may not understand the situation in our class. Gulan's character and studies are really bad, and she has been distracted in class not once or twice. It's not good for you to criticize the top student in the class because of him. The student who studies first is Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui heard Momo talking to him, and felt sorry for him. His face, which was still bad just now, changed for the better, and his evil smile was full of tenderness. Momo is really very gentle. Gulan really thought it was funny. And Momo actually didn't care at all about Xiao Hui's bad face after being bullied, she cared more about her own thoughts and the teacher didn't listen. The male supporting role, Yan Yuxuan, is gentle, wealthy, talented and has a high EQ. Since he came to the school, Momo's life at school has been the same as cheating, from a pitiful little boy who was bullied to a pet boy. Momo, who was used to pampering, could not accept that she was left out in the cold. The female teacher frowned. I think what you said, classmate, is wrong. You have to teach him because of poor study, and you have to correct him because of his bad character. That's what schools are for. After the female teacher finished speaking, Gulan couldn't help applauding. Well said. Thank you, teacher. If you are so serious, I will pay attention to the class. This teacher is very righteous. Momo bit her lower lip in a grieved manner. She felt as if she had been slapped on the face, and she was extremely depressed. She knew she was being targeted. Targeted by this new female teacher? Why? Maybe it's because this teacher likes Teacher Yan. She saw the female teacher and Teacher Yan blushing and greeted each other. And silently stopped talking, bowed her head and fell silent. The female teacher rubbed her aching temple, looked at Gulan who was sitting upright like a schoolboy, and sighed. I was very aggressive just now, sorry. I hope everyone can listen to the class well, for my internship and for your future." As she said this, Xiao Hui suddenly stood up, frowning tightly, and sneered. "Don't say it so nicely, it's just aimed at. You're just jealous that Momo is prettier than you." When Gulan heard this sentence, she was almost laughed out of her waist. "What the are you talking about?" Before Gulan could finish speaking, Ban Lian's silent best friend spoke first. "Yet, I'm just jealous of Momo's good looks, so I've been targeting Momo. Women's jealousy is terrifying. Momo just told her about the situation in the class for her own good. Who knew she would even avenge her kindness?" Hee. Seeing how frivolously Gulan talked to her just now, maybe there is already. The female teacher's face turned red from anger. She didn't expect so many people to scold her just by expressing her thoughts. Clenching her hands into fists, she explained. "I'm not targeting. I just think it's important to treat everyone equally." Xiao Hui sneered and said. "Should people and garbage be treated equally? Garbage should be thrown into the garbage dump. I declare, woman, you have offended Momo, all of us will not take your class in the future. Anyone who listens to her class is my enemy." Xiao Hui. The female teacher burst into tears angrily. "You!" Xiao Hui walked up to Momo, lowered his head gently, handed the tissue to Momo, and said softly. "Hey, don't be afraid, I'm here." After speaking, he looked up at the female teacher. "I'm waiting for you to have self-knowledge and get out of this school consciously." Xiao Hui hadn't finished his quotations from President Ba, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Gulan strode up to him with one hand in his pocket, raised his hand, and grabbed Xiao Hui's collar with one arm and pulled him away. "Lift it up!" the whole class exclaimed. And Momo, who was wiping her eyes, widened her eyes, almost not stupid. The female teacher covered her mouth and exclaimed. Gulan held Xiao Hui up, like a poor little chicken struggling constantly. She lamented that although this body is disguised as a man, it is really strong. He turned his head and said to the female teacher. "Don't listen to him, this person has a second disease." You are right, keep yourself." After speaking, Gulan walked outside the classroom and threw Xiao Hui out. Xiao Hui fell to the ground in embarrassment. Because the incident was so shocking, no one else in the class reacted. Anmo felt very ashamed. Xiao Hui was so weak, she felt ashamed, she covered her face and said nothing. Gulan clapped her hands. "It is true that people and garbage cannot be treated equally. So your garbage should be thrown out." The female teacher was stunned for a moment and walked over. "You, classmate, beating someone is not good. This classmate has a family background, so don't provoke him." Just as Gulan was about to speak, Xiao Hui, who was struggling to get up, stood in the middle of the corridor and said coldly. "You are finished. Gulan, let me tell you, you are finished." Before he finished speaking, a tall man with wheat-colored skin behind him spoke coldly. "Go away." Gulan blinked and greeted the man. "Yan Xiao, what a coincidence." Xiao Hui's body shivered undetectably. Yan Xiao. The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time. Xiao Hui was a little afraid of Yan Xiao, not consciously, but physically. He was beaten by Yan Xiao once, and he almost died that time, so when he saw Yan Xiao now, his body would tremble by itself. Yan Xiao looked down at Xiao Hui, his black eyes were full of impatience, and his brows were even more frowning, too lazy to talk nonsense. "Go away." Xiao Hui stood up with his hands propped up. Obviously, he really wanted to say something harsh to show his aura, but he held back for a long time and only said one sentence. "It is good." Gulan laughed beside him. "Xiao Hui, your ability is to bully women and the weak. When you see a strong one, you don't dare to fart." In the original book, Xiao Hui, as the heroine, does not need to rely on logic to pretend to be coercive. As long as the heroine needs and lacks, he has it and can save the scene perfectly. It's a pity that his hero aura is completely useless to 444's people. If the person in 444 is the villain of other books, as the little system said, the degree of danger is several levels higher than that of Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui heard Gulan's sarcasm, and his complexion and expression were very bad. He straightened his clothes and sneered. I just don't want to get into trouble. Do you think you have some brute strength? Gulan nodded. It's very cool to be able to throw you out. Yan Xiao was too lazy to talk and mind his own business. Seeing Xiao Hui step aside, he walked forward with long legs. The black trousers faintly outlined the perfect muscle lines as he walked. Gulan still remembers his perfect 8-pack abs and a long scar behind him. There is also a story behind Yan Xiao. Yan Xiao was about to leave, and Gulan didn't want to waste time. He turned his head and said to the worried female teacher, "You haven't finished class yet, continue to go back to class." The female teacher looked worried, looked at Gulan, then at Yan Xiao, and sighed deeply. "You child! It's wrong for you to take the initiative to hit someone, and you will be recorded. Just blame me for this matter. I didn't handle it well." This female teacher seems to be a good old man, but also lacks understanding. Gulan tilted her head, and the wolf-tailed hair on the back of her head shook slightly following her movements. Gulan said, "Don't worry about it so much. Long Ao Tian Long Xiao, if it wasn't for Xiao Hui, young Master Xiao wouldn't make a public announcement like before. Otherwise, everyone in the school will know that young Master Xiao was killed by me." Xiao Hui's face turned blue. It can be said that his face was blue and purple, and his lips were tightly drawn together. The standard sharpened face of the overlord hero is now visible. Xiao Hui's face was as painful as if it had been cut by a knife. Xiao Hui said in a cold voice. "Oh, you wait." Gulan said, "I waited for the bell to go to the toilet." "Teacher, let's go." The female teacher was obviously worried, but she really hated Xiao Hui, so she spoke. "This classmate, you should go back to the classroom too. If there is something to do, let's talk about it after class." Xiao Hui looked indifferent. No need. He still wanted to say something, but Gulan thought that he might be afraid of ruining his domineering personality, so he only said a word and left. It has to be said that compared with Yan Xiao's back, Xiao Hui's back looks like a beast and a hare. After Xiao Hui left, Gulan and the female teacher were going back to the classroom for class. Before entering the classroom, the female teacher lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Thank you for helping me out. What's your name?" Her side face is beautiful, her hair is light in color, and her hair is neatly at the back of her head. Wearing a white suit, she has a tall and straight figure, but she is only 1.6 meters tall, so Gulan can look down on her. For a man, petite, cute and intellectual girls are very popular. After the female teacher asked Gulan, she didn't hear Gulan's words. She didn't know why she was a little shy. Why don't you speak? What's your name?" Gulan spoke. "My name is Huo Lei Feng." Female teacher. Yan Xiao walked to the corner of the corridor. Unexpectedly, there was a cynical man standing at the corner. Su Huanwen leaned against the wall behind him with his arms folded. He held a book in his hand and seemed to be reading it with gusto. His hands are beautiful. The 10 fingers are fair and slender, the knuckles of the fingers are distinct, the nails are neatly trimmed, and the nail caps have a healthy light pink luster. Yan Xiao saw Su Huanwen, but he was too lazy to speak. As if he didn't see it, he continued to walk forward. Su Huanwen closed the book and spoke. "Yan Xiao, everything has changed." Yan Xiao stopped and didn't turn his head to look ahead. "Okay." Su Huanwen said with a light smile. "You saw Gulan just now, right? That kid. I spent the whole morning alone with Huayan this morning, and even held hands with Huayan." Yan Xiao frowned slightly, then, What does it have to do with me? Yan Xiao thought of the scene in the corridor just now. That kid named Gulan is indeed a monster who dared to come to their dormitory and even took the initiative to play with snakes. It's a couple of hits. Thinking of this, Yan Xiao turned around subconsciously, and unconsciously saw Gulan and the female teacher's intimate silhouette. He felt nothing at the moment. And Su Huanwen said, "It has something to do with you. I suspect that Gulan likes men?" The first release of this book comes from 17K Novel Network, so you can read the genuine content for the first time.